Okay, Jordan, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Uh, yeah, hi everyone. Like I said before, my name is Jordan Rosenthal, and I'm the Director of Advocacy at Community Access, which is a supportive housing provider. And we operate also support services for people in all five boroughs. And I'm the lead organizer of a coalition called Correct Crisis Intervention Today, CCIT NYC. And I'm going to kind of talk about two things today. I'm going to talk about city and state budget and specifically how we can create more voluntary based services that support community members. Because one of the things that I think, and the reason why part of this connects too is, and I was saying the governor's budget is the governor is really pushing the expansion of involuntary mental health treatment. And I have a tool that I'm going to put in the chat that I'm going to ask everyone if you feel comfortable with, please use it to contact your elected officials, including the governor, to push back on this kind of forced treatment model. And the reason why I say that is that forced treatment is really a last resort. And by expanding the ability of who can bring people in for forcible commitment and psychiatric evaluation, we are also really criminalizing poverty. And of course, someone's mental health is going to get worse when they don't have a safe place to sleep at night. And the other thing that I always say is, as true New Yorkers, when anyone tells us anything or to do something, our initial reaction is, who are you? Like, kind of F off, right? Like, who are you? What are you telling me to do? So someone with mental health concerns would be no different. And part of what my group, CCIT, advocates for is the inclusion of peers, people with their own mental health experience being on crisis response teams and being first responders, because they understand what it's like to be in crisis. And I'm going to just give a little trigger warning about sexual assaults before I tell this story, because it connects to the power of the peer. So when I first started my career, this was actually before I even met Tatiana, who she and I have worked together some positions past. I met a woman who had exited prison and she had access to a shower, but she didn't use it. And she, was currently unsheltered and living out on the street. And she thought, the smellier I am, the less likely I will be sexually assaulted as I sleep. And I think about this story every day in my career, and especially as we talk about this forced expansion of forced treatment, which one of the criteria that the governor is trying to push is the ability to take care of one's basic needs. And in this scenario, this woman, yes, she might not have been able to take care of some of her basic needs, but she was doing the best she could to take care of herself. And by having policies that dictate who gets to determine someone's wellness and that type of thing can be really biased and problematic and strip someone from their autonomy and self-expertise in their own life. She knew what she was doing. It wasn't that she wanted to be smelly. It wasn't that she wanted to be unsheltered. She thought, this is the safest way that I can protect myself. So when I come back to all of this, I'm going to put two things in the chat. One is a tool that you can use to contact your elected officials about the importance of funding voluntary programs. And those are programs that really utilize peers and things like assertive community treatment teams, ACT teams, IMT teams, right? A big thing with forced treatment and Kendra's law, or AOT, which is this whole idea of, like forcing people into mental health treatment, is because they're too late in the system. And we need to support early intervention tactics so people don't get to that place of crisis. It's not that people in crisis are any more dangerous, really. It's that they're crying out for help. And I think we see this also with like the story of Jordan Neely. He was made people feel uncomfortable because of the vast reality and the harsh reality of poverty. He was calling out for food and shelter, and that made people scared, because I think honestly, when it comes down to it, and I will say this for myself, I'm scared every day that I'm one paycheck away from being homeless. And I do this work because I think about, if I was homeless, how would I want to be treated? Sorry, I got a little passionate right there. But how would I want to be treated, right? Who is providing me services? What do they look like? How are they greeting me? And this is coming from, someone who I'm a white social worker from Long Island, and it's not appropriate for me to be the responder to the man who is homeless and having a mental health crisis in um, Penn Station. We're not going to be able to connect. He's not going to trust me. Even if I'm coming as my most authentic, best self, I'm just another face, right? So the power of the peer and the power of voluntary services is that true connection and that authenticity. And to really put it bluntly, have someone feel like someone cares about them, that they're not just pushing them to make it pretty for tourists and taxpayers. So a lot of this work is about ensuring that there are voluntary services and supportive housing for our community members. And if this is something that you're also interested in, on the city level, I put a second link in the chat, which is our sign-on form for CCIT, where our budget ask is much smaller, and we're asking for 4.5 million to have peer responders be added to Be Heard teams, which don't currently operate in your district, I believe. Be Heard is a non-police mental health crisis response. They utilize social workers and EMS, but they're still it could have a lot of potential, but the way that it currently operates, it falls flat. So the reason how all of this connects is, again, how are we meeting people in crisis? How are we connecting with our community? And how are we interacting? So with that, I'm open to questions.
Thanks for that. Recently I heard from a specialist, that was very involved in law enforcement and so forth. And they hear it from the police department too. They don't want to be involved in outreach in these crisis moments. And we've worked so hard to even get some of the small things, like a medical person embedded when they do outreach. So I'm surprised that we're not making more of a headway on this. Well, I'm not surprised, but we have to fight for
Yeah.
every little thing, it seems. And
I would
we
say
appreciate
on the
you.
state level, sorry, John.
Mhm.
On the state level, part of it, and I think your group is actually really influential because of your district. So, for instance, Brad Hoylman is pushing this bill called the HELP Act, which stands for Harness Expertise of Licensed Professionals. And part of the reason he's pushing this is because so many people in your district have been pushed into subway tracks. Unfortunately, when someone was, potentially in crisis, and he got a lot of pushback from community members. And the reason why his bill is inappropriate is his bill expands who is able to bring people in for psychiatric evaluation. And it includes all mental health providers, and that includes licensed marriage and family counselors. If I said before that I, as a social worker, am inappropriate to respond to the person on, in Penn Station, and I clearly have been, I'm doing this work, I'm primed, right? I can't imagine that a licensed family and marriage counselor is going to be able to be supportive in a voluntary, interaction.
Yeah, very good point. What do you see? Are you pretty active into just discussing that bill? Have you uh, what's your efforts
So I went
outreach?
up to Albany last week to have a kind of fund voluntary services day. So really that voter voice link that's in the chat, please, like you guys are such a powerful district. Please fill that out. Please reach out to your elected officials in the state because they're working on the budget right now. And Hochul is really digging her heels in and is pulling out all the stops to be like, we need discovery rollback and we need involuntary commitment. And it's not that involuntary commitment can't be used. It's that it should be the last resort. And we are using it as a crutch instead of actually supporting people in their needs. So when we did go to Albany, we talked about how that bill is problematic. There's also another bill by Scarlett Spanton that I forgot the exact name of that bill, but it would basically, that story about the woman not being able to take care of herself, it would expand that criteria of someone not being able to take care of their basic needs would make them eligible to be involuntarily committed if they also had a mental health concern. And let's be frank, again, you don't know where you're sleeping at night, you're gonna have some type of mental health anxiety, whatever it may be. Um, so, I think about that myself. Like, I have mental health stuff and I'm stably housed and employed. It would only get worse if things became more unstable. And the other thing that I'll just say really quickly is regardless of your politics on the federal level, there are very serious implications to these Doge cuts that we are seeing in our communities that haven't even rolled out yet. And that includes federal grant cuts, federal block grants that are not eliminating, but putting groups like CASES, who run early psychosis intervention groups for young Black men, being like, well, what are we going to do now? We have no funding. Like, we can't just leave them, right? Like, so they're left being like, what's going on? And then same thing is happening with ACT teams. So instead, we're just going to like criminalize our way out of this.
Yeah, that's it seems to go in cycles like that where they do. They figure they can arrest the problem away and put it out of sight, out of mind. I have often said that they take these moments and they must, blow it up. And in the overall, look at this, you don't have that many incidents where the people who are in these stressful positions striking out, it's usually they are being attacked. Am I wrong there?
No, you're correct. Actually, people with mental health concerns are 11 times more likely to be the victims of violence than the perpetrators. And that is a huge deal. And again, like I said before, someone in crisis, or let me back up a second. For outreach workers and peers who meet people who may be unhoused and have mental health concerns, they know the status of people. And what I mean by that is, again, to the outside eye, anyone who's kind of living out on the street is in crisis because it's so different than our everyday, and we don't want to deal with that harsh reality. And then that added layer of when they actually are in crisis is another fear factor for them. But when you talk to the outreach providers, the peers, the person who's going to that person every day saying, would you like a sandwich? How can I help you? What is your name? Right? Who every day, regardless of how they respond, they are there to connect with that person. Okay. That person is going to have more success. Like, it's just, that's the way it is.
Absolutely. And I'll just say one more thing. If we had a bill to counteract, sometimes stopping a bill, sometimes, and some of these bills go to committees and they just die anyway, but they are kind of threatening, to see this pushed as a PR ploy or optics or whatever. Maybe there's a bill that you would want to craft and put forward that would counteract uh, what they're doing.
Yeah, there is a piece of state legislation that's not horrible, but it's kind of like everything in the kitchen sink. If anyone's from Rochester, it's like the garbage plate of bills. And it's I don't think anyone was from Rochester and got that reference. But anyway, it's like everything in the kitchen sink, and it's called the Empire State of Mind Bill by Tatiana. Do you know her last name? The woman in the I think she's the state senate. It's like Rauj.
Mhm. That one lost me too.
Um, she has this bill called the Empire State of Mind Bill, and like named after the Jay-Z song, which I was also like interesting choice, but okay. Um, and it's like everything in the kitchen sink. So it's like ACT teams, IMT teams, right? All of these different things, but it wasn't super well informed. So there's needs to be some work done on that. Because the other thing is like you'll hear people talk about the expansion of psychiatric beds, and that's not a long-term solution either. People leave the hospital. But does anyone have any other specific questions or anything? And I would just say, like, if you do see someone having a crisis, please don't call the police. Like, they tend to further traumatize the person. And the other thing that I think about in relation to all of this is a lot of individuals are overserved and oversaturated, and they may be refusing services because could you imagine, like, you just want to like mind your own business, and every 5 minutes someone comes up to you to be like, "Hi, Jordan, are you okay? Do you need a sandwich?" And it's like, I'm just trying to like leave me alone. Like, you really need to remind me of my situation every 5 seconds. Like, these are parts of the things that create animosity when people don't want to accept services, also. So I'm going to just stop there. But we would really love to have everyone support CCIT's work. And then also, like I said, the state work pushing back against the expansion of involuntary treatment. We need more voluntary services.
Yeah, thank you for that. Please reach out with any kind of asks to and postings. Anybody have any questions?
John, our timekeeper says we're running behind, but I just want to really quickly say thank you, Jordan, for your passion, because we need more people with passion in this city for the things that are going on. Really quickly, I know that in Newark, they are criminalizing the homeless and charging and fining them or arresting them for being homeless. So that's how far we've gotten in the care of our homelessness here in the city. Many of the residences have closed or and been replaced with luxury housing. So where are these people going to go? One of the things that I was thinking of is the incarceration, and maybe Tatiana can further elaborate on this, because involuntary commitment is sort of like incarceration, right? Let's just call it what it is. And most of the time,
Yes.
it's many people of color, right? So it's discrimination, and it's labeling, as well as in criminalizing homelessness. So when you have many of these shelters, they have to let these people out on the street, right? They can't stay in there all day. They let them out on the street. So what are they supposed to do during the time they're out on the street? Many of them, they keep to themselves. So the whole system needs a redo, right? Because it's
Yeah.
not benefiting the people that they're supposed to serve. One of the things I wanted to ask you is the criteria for the mental health peers, and do they get compensation? How does that work?
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about, I'll do this really quickly, but there are peer specialists that are certified through the state. My organization, Community Access, runs the premier advocacy or premier like peer training program called Howie the Harp. It's on 125th Street in Adam Clayton Powell. And that is a 12-week training program. And then someone gets an internship, which has a small stipend, but it's all to support them to get this state certification, which is then prepares them to get a job at a place like Cases or Community Access, or even the state doing kind of these response teams and having a peer role. One of the things that I'm advocating for is that the peer needs a bigger role, because very often, depending on where the peer is employed, they are sidelined and are kind of like, well, I have an MSW, so kind of like thing. And we're like, no, the peer has the expertise because of their lived experience. They need an equal playing field in the work. On the city level, again, trying to get peers added to that crisis response team, that 4.5 million is to ensure competitive compensation. And that type of peer does not exist yet. That would have to be differently certified through the city, because it would be more intensive on de-escalation and crisis work. So it wouldn't be your typical peer. It would be kind of like a health and hospitals type of role type of thing. And again, that 4.5 is for competitive compensation. So people would be paid like a $70,000 a year salary, because this is also a workforce development issue. People who have lived experience and have been served by many of these systems are often stifled inability to reach like the professional ladders or whatnot. And this is a way to kind of work on that as well. So I hope that answers your question.